What is going on, you guys? Theo here with the big review, back yet again with another King of Fighters All-Star video, and today we are going to be taking a look at some guild raid footage, both of Expert and Lunatic difficulty. I'm going to be going into the Expert difficulty with the new Iori option and finisher cards, and testing those out thoroughly. So before we get into all that, make sure you smash that like button and subscribe. First thing I wanted to show you guys, I actually did this run a couple of days ago, back when my Elisabeth was still Awakening level 20, and she is now at Awakening level 30 because I was able to get my Fest redemption ticket from my pass, so that is now officially a thing. I will be bringing you guys more guild raid footage, as well as hopefully a guide to the Lunatic difficulty at some point in the future after I feel like I'm comfortable enough in my own skills at this point with this mode in order to bring that to you guys and have made full observations on it. As of right now, as it sits, I find that it isn't too difficult as long as you are careful. It more so requires a whole lot of split-second decisions and a lot of attention to what is going on in front of you, because if you get caught in a combo, it's pretty much just going to ruin your entire run. So you got to be pretty careful with this thing comparatively to some of the other modes. So one thing I did notice about the Lunatic difficulty that is quite a bit different from Expert or Hard or whatever mode it is you're doing is that if you are in the middle, and I will point it out when it happens again because it just happened a few moments ago in this video, but whenever you are using your finisher while the shield is down on Omega Rugal, if you are finishing your finisher animation once his shield goes back up, he is going to use his finisher automatically. So he's going to stun you, and he is going to basically do his nuke right here. As you'll see, that happened again. So you can actually plan for it, and something that you can use to exploit that is if you know it's coming, then you can try and use your exploit where you smash your finisher right as he goes to do his. Now the thing is though, is if you are using your finisher, you may not have the PG or the bars to do another finisher, so you're pretty much stuck taking the damage and the stun. Otherwise, it's kind of hit or miss on whether or not he's going to use the stun when his shield goes back up if you're just doing a normal rotation of your skills. So it's not necessarily something you can exploit very easily, and so therefore your mileage may vary on it. I've done it a few times, but it's one of those things where you're almost better off just kind of ignoring it and going for whatever it is you're trying to do as far as an ideal run on damage. But even with this, I found myself still making a few mistakes here and there. So this isn't a completely clean run. I feel like I could easily do over 300 million damage, even with her at Awakening level 20. Obviously now with her at Awakening level 30, I'm going to be able to probably easily do more than that. I haven't had a chance to test her at Awakening level 30 yet, as I just awoke her to that level. But here soon, I should be able to bring you guys that footage at some point. I'm hoping to do roughly around 300 to 350 million damage per run at that point. And I feel like that's a good kind of stopping point right now with this, where if I can at least do that amount, then I'm in pretty good shape overall. But yeah, I just wanted to show this to you guys because I wanted to kind of further cement to you guys that you really don't need her at high Awakening levels to be able to perform very well in this. Now, yes, I do not use emulators, I do not use a PC, I do not use macros, I don't use any of that kind of stuff. And to my knowledge, from all of the top tier players that I have spoken to, you're not really going to have a whole lot of luck doing 300 plus million damage against this character without those things, unless you have Elisabeth at a decent Awakening level. So your mileage may vary. I've heard people report here and there, but I don't really necessarily prescribe to something unless I see evidence of it. Like, I need to see footage of it. So if you guys have seen footage out there of people who are not using those things doing that amount of damage, or without Elisabeth in general, which would be extremely impressive, and I have not actually seen physical proof, send that to me. Leave a link in the description, or leave a link in the comments, whatever you got to do. But 295 million damage, not bad. So let's go ahead and get into the bigger part of today's video, and that is going to be talking about the new Iori option card as well as his finisher. So yesterday we talked about these as we pulled for them But I wanted to do a deep dive on expert difficulty today with Iori and show you guys how these cards perform, because I want to test them myself. So as you'll see here, we're using the new finisher. It's a 3PG card. It is going to grant him 10% attack and critical rate up by 3.6% for 10 seconds when he uses it. Very powerful. You're going to see it in full display in this video. I'm going to basically slow down this footage so that you guys can see how much shield damage he eats up at certain parts. I'm not going to do it in every part where he is tagged in, otherwise it would get pretty annoying, but certain areas I'll show you guys. Now, as far as the option card goes, he does have the 30% chance to deal darkness damage equal to 40% of his attack upon landing an active skill. Now, that is not applying darkness, keep that in mind. That is why I use my Lady Geese as a striker for the extra darkness application. And then the freeze and petrify duration decrease, that is the worst part of this card. I wish it would have been something else, but it is what it is. The crit rate increase is very nice for him because he loves having more crit. That's why I'm using, for instance, the Tekken set for this. And you guys will be able to see how much damage he is able to do to the shield. Now, before I had these cards, I never used him on the shield. I had done it in the past, it just didn't seem lucrative, so I stopped doing it. I do have, by the way, this Leona option card on both my Rugal and my Delans as well. It's tougher to gauge how those are performing, though, so kind of bear that in mind. But I did put them on there just for, just for posterity's sake. But typically, when you hear people talk about Iori in Guild Raid, for an example, typically it's because he is going to be very good when the shield is down. But I wanted to test and see how he did when the shield was up. So therefore, what we're going to do is we are going to splice this in such a way to where when I tag him in and he is going at this character when the shield is up, I wanted to give you guys a slow motion view of how much damage over time he is doing to this shield, so that you can see what I'm talking about when I say that these cards make him extremely powerful in this mode. Typically before, you would do barely any damage to the shield because he didn't have any application of darkness. And even with me using my Lady Geese all the time as I did, which here we go, first slow motion, 99% shield. Let's take a look at how much he does. But before, when I had Lady Geese still as a striker, he was doing barely anything to the shield. So I just stopped doing it. I would only tag him in instances where I needed him when the shield was down. Now, he is viable on both sides. You're going to see here, the shield was at 99%, and now it is at 48%. So that's about 50% of that shield in just a couple of seconds, which is very impressive. And a lot of it comes down to his new finisher. His new finisher does quite a bit of damage. And you'll be able to see it again. I'll show you guys and we'll kind of point out. But the damage that his new 3PG is able to put up against this character is pretty impressive. So I highly recommend getting these cards for him. If you're somebody... So I've heard people talk about Iori, and the Iori disrespect that I hear, it's mind-blowing. Iori in PvE is still one of the best free-to-play options that there is. Now, he's nowhere near a Nameless or a Gonitz or any of those characters, obviously. But there's a reason why you see Iori used from Immortals to Guild Raid. It doesn't really matter what the mode is. People use Iori for a reason. Now, is he the best character in the game? No, by no stretch of the imagination. He's very squishy, and he has quite a few problems. He's not a PvP character whatsoever. He's purely a PvE character. But I hear people intermittently, and admittedly it's very few, I hear more people that obviously understand where I'm coming from and why Iori is used so often by so many people, and you see him in so many showcase videos for different runs. But Iori is a very, very powerful free-to-play character. And by free-to-play, I mean he's a character that's available on the Unified banner, not a collab, not a Boss Syndrome character. He is just there on the Unified banner generically for people to get, and he is extremely powerful and very beneficial for these modes here for new players, intermediates, so on and so forth. So, alright, 42% of shield, and you're going to see this shield is not going to last very long. Even in slow motion, that shield is going down very quickly, and then we're going to hit our finisher, and that's pretty much going to eradicate it. So that is the kind of examples there that I want to show you of this, and there will be a couple more that we'll show. I kind of more so want to show some of the rest of these as just kind of showcasing these runs, because I was able to shatter my old records. But speaking of shattering, the shield is gone, as I said. So yeah, overall, these new cards make him a shield shredding machine. It's pretty impressive the amount of damage he's able to output against the shield now. I would say that if you are a player who is at all worried about doing runs on some of these things, and here again we'll do another slow motion 30% shield as we tag in here. Go ahead and pop off our finisher for our new 3PG, and the shield's already down. So that took what, 2-3 seconds or so off the clock, maybe not even, because we used our finisher. I think it might have been more like 2 seconds. So yeah, it's pretty impressive, like I said. But overall, if you're somebody that is interested, we talked about this a lot yesterday as I was pulling for these cards. If you're somebody that's interested in doing better runs on these different modes, if you're somebody that's interested in meta, then I would definitely be going in on these new cards for the Leona card in general. And by proxy of that, if you're able to get these cards for Iori, I highly recommend putting them on the rate up and trying to get them, because all these cards are powerful. All of them are useful for certain things. Now, again, are these the most broken cards in the game? Well, no, not at all, except for that Leona one. That one's debatable. But the Iori cards are very, very strong, and he does very, very good damage. And I think at the end of the day, that these things have pretty much put him in a new category damage-wise for PvE for himself compared to where he was at before. Now, he still has the same kind of inherent issues he's always had, and he'll always have those. I mean, like I said, he's not the best character in the game by any stretch of the imagination. But you'll be able to see here that if you have been considering, whether you're an intermediate player considering building him up for kind of help in your guild, if you're trying to do better there, because I get tons of questions from people asking for help on these guild raid modes, and I am going to do a few guides here and there once I get footage that I'm happy with and runs that I'm happy with to put in there. I will show that to you guys and kind of give you my thoughts on kind of different strategies and things. But yeah, Iori is, at the end of the day, a very, very powerful character for this, and I would highly recommend building him up for it. These runs, at the end of the day, they come down to a lot of RNG. I mean, you could sit here and you could do 10, 15 runs, and the gaps in damage that you're able to do from one run to the next are pretty impressive. And it all comes down to RNG a lot of the time. There's a lot of RNG that is involved with a lot of this stuff. But you'll see here we had 393 million damage, which is respectable. However, you're going to see in the next run, we significantly beat that number. This was actually one of my first runs testing this stuff, and I was very focused on just Iori in general at this point. On this next run, you're going to see that we do a whole heck of a lot better. And this one I'm going to freeze quite a bit less, just because I want to be able to show you guys kind of this run in full for the most part. But yeah, we're still going to use kind of the same strategies on this one. We're basically just going to cycle through our characters and use our finishers as much as possible, use Delins to basically help break the shield as reliably as possible, and then bring in our Omega Rugal to do the most damage when the shields are down, when available, or we're going to use Iori as kind of a flex for both of those types of positions, given the fact that he can play both sides of the coin now so well, as we saw in that first run. So you'll see here, switch into Omega Rugal, and Omega Rugal is really friggin' powerful for this. He really is. The amount of damage he's able to put up with shields down is impressive, but I'm going to go ahead and slow this one down here so you guys can see we have a nice, juicy 100% bar here, and we're going to see how much damage we are able to do over time using our rotation of all three of our skills, and then using our finisher with our new 3PG, and there we go. Looks like we got him down to 54%, so somewhere in the realm of about 56% damage onto that overall with that Iori rotation. So yeah, the average going rate that I found, and I had more runs like this that I did that I left on the cutting room floor, so to speak, but the more runs that I did, the more I found that the average remained the same. The average is about 55 million or so damage, or 55% rather, I apologize, 55 percent damage to the shield with these new option cards and the new finisher on Iori whenever shields are up. So yeah, overall, for anybody who is wondering, is Iori good when shields are up now? Iori is phenomenal when shields are up right now. I would recommend using, like I said, Lady Geese or whatever striker you want to use with darkness application on them to kind of help him out just a little bit in that capacity. That will help him get through this a little bit easier because, again, he does not apply darkness. And that is the downside, what kind of the trade-off is for him not having a cooldown on this darkness on this card, is the fact that he doesn't apply it, he just does a total amount of damage based upon his attack to the target in darkness damage. But that pretty much helps him chunk off and nuke the shield whenever the character already has darkness applied, just that much more. So I would recommend it. You don't have to. I can actually test it without that, but I felt like that was going to be a much stronger option for him because really he is in a flex position on a team like this. He's more so going to be a character that you are going to want to use whenever your other two characters are not necessarily available, or you want to just get a finisher off as they've already used theirs and they're on cooldown. And it's nice that he has that versatility in this mode. You know, there's a very defined role for the other two characters overall. They both kind of have their set position on the teams as far as what you're trying to do with them, whereas Orochi Iori is kind of a flex now. Now, is he a master of both of those things? I would not say so. You know, he's a jack of both of those trades, but a master of neither. And so it's going to be one of those things where, at the end of the day, these other two characters are going to be leaned on a lot more heavily. But getting that leadership skill from the Iori on top of the other things that he is doing is just very important. And that's why you see so many people use him for this. You know, I know some people like to use Eileen as well, and Eileen typically you'll see with the PC players, the emulator players, they'll use her a ton because they can take full advantage of her. You're not really able to exploit the speed of those characters as much on a phone unless you have just a really, really nice phone, I would assume. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's up to you. It comes down to preference. I mean, both of those are going to be great options, but Iori still sees a ton of play for this for a reason. You know, you really only see a couple of characters for these runs, and Iori is generally involved in whatever team it is, whether it's using Gonitz or Eileen or whatever the case may be. You'll typically see Iori on the team, and there's a reason for that. Again, it just comes down to, you've seen it in this video, the power that he is able to output for you against this character in this raid is just wonderful. And these cards, I feel like I have shown you guys at this point, do a ton of difference for him. A character that used to be considered purely a character to use when the shields were down, and little else, is now a character that can be comfortably used with shields up and actually do a wonderful job in that role. So that's pretty much what I wanted to show you guys. I wanted to at least make it clear to everybody what you're looking at with this new Iori stuff that he got, because it does make a major difference. And we're going to finish up this run here and shatter all of our old records. We're going to, I forget exactly how much, Rugal just does so much damage whenever the shields are down, but I want to say we did close to 450 million or so. We'll see. I forget exactly how much, but yeah, 447, so just shy. 448, okay, 448, so just shy. So that's going to go ahead and do it for the footage that I had to show you guys. I just wanted to give you some video footage of this finisher as well as this option card in action and show you guys how well they perform. It goes without saying, you want the 3PG finisher, you definitely want it. There are going to be times and instances where you are going to prefer to have the 5PG for the longer animation, but the 3PG definitely go in for. As far as the option card goes, it is a lot more niche and doesn't have as wide a range of uses and utility. Now, if you're going in for the Leona option card, which everybody should be, if you're going in for his 3PG, which I definitely recommend if you use him, which you should be, it's a card you'll want one of, and you'll want one of it so that you can use it for specific instances such as the expert level of the guild raid, and even in the Immortal dungeon that requires you to have darkness damage if you use Iori there. This will actually make him pretty viable for that as your leader for one of your teams. But outside of those two uses, this card does have issues. It has the issue of the decreased duration of freeze and petrify on it, which pretty much wastes a slot. I really wish that was cooldown reduction, but I digress. However, as you've seen outlined in this video, if you couple this with the new 3PG as well as a Darkness Striker, such as a Lady Geese or a Halloween Gatecrasher Chris, then he puts in a ton of work. It's roughly about 50 to 55% of the shield in 3 seconds or so is what he is able to do on a full rotation of his skills plus the 3PG finisher. And that is about as accurate a gauge as I can give you guys on how this card and the new finisher perform. And at the end of the day, like I said, this is a flawed card. It is not a perfect card. It does not apply. It just does a set amount of damage on a chance. So it is not going to give you as much utility as a regular Darkness user would. But at the end of the day, still a good card. I would recommend getting like 1 copy and moving on from it while you're going for your Leona options. So that's pretty much going to be the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I know this format was a little bit different from what we've done in the past, but I tried to shake things up a little bit and figured this was the best way to show all this to you guys. So if you enjoyed it, like, share, and subscribe. It helps me out a ton. We do videos every single day. I appreciate all of you. Thank you so much for over 600 subscribers, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Continue.